So, you guys, first timers?
First time in a lockdown. Well, actually, for me, it's not necessarily a first time per se. In Brazil, I kind of had something similar. I mean, it's very, very different, but it's also the sensation of having to stay at home. So in São Paulo, sometimes what happens is that you have the mafia, and they kind of control the city at some points, and it's not rare to happen that they just send a general WhatsApp message saying, oh, okay, you have to be home from this point until this point because we're just going to be on the streets, and if you're there, you're going to be fucked. So it has happened before, and this was when I had just moved into Sao Paulo, and I received this message, and I'm kind of scared, and I don't know if I can trust it or not, but I just decided to go to my place and stay there and be safe rather than risk it. And later on, I realized it's not so dangerous, especially because I'm quite privileged and I'm not in around the peripheries of the city, but within the peripheries that can be quite dangerous, and not just in terms of the mafia, but the police itself become very violent because of this messages being spread. But so it's very chaotic.
It probably wasn't for like 2 months, right?
No, it's definitely not for 2 months, but it's the same uncertainty, I think, in terms of not knowing what will happen and having to stay at home for a while and not, undefined.
Question from Petronella. I think that's like, do you get actually fucked if... is that a question? What is the question?
Actually fucked? Oh, I see. I'm not sure what she means. Okay. About the in São Paulo. Well, as I said, if you're living in privileged zones, you're probably going to be fine. But the thing is that these messages, they kind of spread chaos. And if that reaches the police, then they will become violent by themselves, and they will go to the periphery, and things happen. People get killed, not uncommon. There's a sort of a civil war going on in the periphery in Sao Paulo, but mostly in Rio de Janeiro. People don't usually talk about it, but it's an everyday struggle.
So actually, maybe the lockdown is going to do some good? I don't know.
In the Brazilian context, in the peripheral context, I'm not quite sure.
Kind of power and wealth does the government have in general? Like that was pointed out during the show. Mark Rutte said, I think, that the country can withstand a debt of 90 billion euros. 90 billion for a country of 70 million people. That's a lot of back bank. We
are very privileged. Yeah.
Excuse me.
We are very privileged.
We are very privileged, but are we though? That was another question. Where does all this money go? Because the money is there, but why isn't it being used for rather specific things? For more of universal basic income. Zaki, your opinion, because that's your line of thinking, I think.
Yeah, well, I think universal basic income, it's a good idea and it can be a good tool, but it cannot be seen as the end goal, because at least the way we had a presidential candidate in the United States, Andrew Yang, and his platform was all about the universal basic income. And the way he had it as his platform was that you could choose between getting welfare programs like food stamps or Medicaid and things like that, or you could get the universal basic income. And the thing is that $1,000 a month, that's not going to cover those things that you would have get through the welfare programs. So I think the best thing is those things. You have to have the free healthcare. You have to have, access to housing and things. And then you can also have the $1,000 a month to get the necessities that you need. But it cannot be seen as the only thing that you need.
Yeah, because if you think of it nowadays, with forced lockdown, so many people are struggling with the situation of, what if I cannot work? What if I cannot pay for the rent? Housing should be essentially, or a shelter should be a human right, right?
Exactly.
So that's all the things that should be addressed, because there is I cannot say that Dutch government doesn't have, I don't know, Katinka, how is it called, the housing allowance or
huurtoeslag.
Yeah, the huurtoeslag. They have it, but that's already for very specific group. You need to be certain age, you need to have certain wage, etc., etc. Surely there is ways to handle something like this so that people can just ensure that there is a place for them to stay at all times, right? Tell me. Katinka.
Yeah, well, I think that a basic income would solve all that, because the way that I see it is you have that basic income and then you can forget about all the other things that we have. Just like you say, the huurtoeslag, also zorgtoeslag for your insurance, for your health insurance. And then you have somebody with one kid gets this much of money, somebody with two kids that are studying gets another funding thing. It's so complicated, and this tax system costs a lot of money, because if you have one person with an uitkering of maybe 900 euros, you have that processed every month. That costs another maybe few thousand euros. I don't know exact numbers, but it costs a lot of money to keep track of all this paperwork. Every month you have to have this background check. So if you have a basic income, then you can forget about all of that. And with that basic income, you can have your apartment or your room, right? Not a very expensive one, but that's why you have to work if you want to live nicer. But basics, you should be able to provide for that.
Yeah, the whole point of universal basic income, I see like a lot of enemies of it is like saying that people want to be lazy, they just like want to have free handouts. But like, first of all, the point of it is to provide you, yeah, it speaks for itself, basic necessities, at least some sort of form of it. And like the whole point of it is to free up your time. So let's say you get like those 600 euros granted, and that means you don't need to work those 60 hours if you are talking minimum wage, for example. Doesn't mean you will stop working. If you want more money or you want to, I don't know, save up, you can go working, but you can also focus on your creativity, right? Luna, Zaki?
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to throw more of a reflective question. How do you guys think that having a universal basic income would affect the behavior within individuals and society and societal structures? Do you think there would be a great difference in how things are managed, for instance?
I think there would be a big difference, actually. I think, having, like Ralpha said, it frees you up. You don't have to work as much. So you don't have to worry about as many things as you would if you did not have that extra $1,000, And so I feel like people would be a lot less stressed. There might be, some reduction in mental illness because of that, because you don't have all that extra things weighing you down. And so, yeah, I think that would be a very positive outcome of it.
Yeah, because one of the things that I was thinking when, because I listened to the episode as well, and this kind of was stuck in my mind, is the idea that if you have basic income, then a lot of people don't have to do the shitty jobs, and then suddenly things shitty jobs don't go to who cannot avoid them, but it becomes more of a communal thing. So everyone has to do these chores and everyone has to do these tasks together. As if you have a house, you have to take the bin out, and you don't assign the one person that pays the least rent to do that. They just do it, everyone together. And I think it's a interesting thing that could happen. I don't know if it would.
Right now, you see that a lot of people cannot work, right? And what you see, especially what I see in my neighborhood, is that this is happening. People are cleaning up their houses front and back. People are cleaning up the streets, are helping their neighbors, because you still want to do something. Having free time is nice for 2 or 3 days, and then we're all human beings and we want to have a purpose in life. And if that's going to be go to some simple job, that can be enough for a lot of people, but also doing something valuable with your time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can actually speak personally on that. My dad, what he does for work, he actually goes out and on the nights where people put their trash and finds the things that can be reused or recycled, and finds a lot of scrap metal and takes that to the metal wholesalers to get money and things like that. That's really what he does to survive. And so there's a lot of people who really do that, and it makes sure that streets are clean, and it makes sure that things that can be reused actually are reused. And I feel like a lot of people would still take those jobs just because they need to be done. My father told me about how when he was younger, his goal in life was to be a janitor, and that later did change a lot, possibly because of societies of the people who do those lower jobs. But I think a lot of the issue comes from we think of these jobs as being lower, as opposed to them just being jobs that are a necessity for society to work. And so I think that if we have the UBI, I feel like it might change the perceptions of these jobs themselves, and I think people would do them more, or at least be more open to them, at least.
Yeah.
Well, this whole topic also reminds me of, I think Zaki said that during previous episode, about how This whole crisis just within a week showed that like all the people that couldn't work for, I don't know, 40 years, 2000 years, like the disabled people, like people, well, with disabilities. Nowadays, now everyone can work from home, remotely. Now all the companies that would deny them the right to work, all of a sudden moved all of their completely healthy employees to work from home.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
argument.
exactly.
Yeah, if you stop putting these restrictions on, you have to be this good to earn a spot in our company, right? If the help is actually needed, then somebody with autism is very welcome because, even though there are 10 things that they cannot do, there's one thing that they can do perfectly. And if the need is there, then especially when they're free, right? Now everybody's asking for help with taking care of people. And it doesn't matter if you have a diploma, as long as you want to do something, there is a job for you. And I think that it will be wonderful if after this crisis we can still stay in that mindset and give people a chance to take that place as well.
Well, for me, what I feel is there could be a shift between doing things for profit and doing things because there are roles within society and doing things because there are material needs. And now we're getting closer to what material needs means. And they don't necessarily always match with profit needs, and they don't necessarily always match with roles. And by roles, I mean, I don't know, titles that you obtain to do certain jobs. Yeah, mostly, or the different personas that you have to present in different job situations and in different scenarios. And I think that's quite interesting, and it goes, for me, it's like, because I'm also quite interested in making parallels between my experiences here and my experiences in Brazil, and also my experiences with some indigenous tribes that I had contact to. And the main difference in terms of how society is ruled is precisely in the sense of materiality. Because the way that we are ruled, and in the terms of roles and profit, even though it doesn't seem like so, it tends to be a society that depends on the lack of stuff. You need something that is lacking for the society to move. Whereas societies that are based on material needs, materiality, they're based on abundance. I want to obtain abundance, so I don't need to do much on the material side, and I can focus on other things. And I think that now the coronavirus has put us in the situation that's slightly similar to that. And if people put motivation in it, we could carry on in this line and then go through a major shift on how things are organized, or just go back to how it was, which I hope doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chum has a very cool comment here. So he's saying, the comment about the eugenistic outcomes are quite realistic. It might also help UN reach their goals of eradicating poverty by 2030, because they will all be dead.
There you go. For everyone to see. I hope UN and CIA is watching. We should be on the bottom.
There's a bit of a wink and a lot of harsh truth in that comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not up to us, right? These decisions are made on a whole different level. I think we personally, the only thing that we can do is take our responsibility, stay the fuck home, and take that responsibility, keep everything clean, don't go standing too close to other people. That's what we as human beings just can do for each other, no matter what they decide in higher politics.
And after all of this kerfuffle is done, don't just settle down with business as usual. I mean, I would ask people to do that. Like, let's try to kickstart a movement. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, movement.
I mean,
but honestly, I think if a movement is to start, it should start while the crisis is on.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think if nothing else, this crisis is showing that there is another way to do things. And so, like, you see all these countries that are suddenly putting in, like in the United States, they're suddenly, expanding healthcare, expanding sick leave and pay leave. They're might be into doing something similar to a universal basic income. So like all of these things are possible. And, don't just go back to the same old when the pandemic ends. Just because the pandemic ends, we can still continue helping everyone who needs this help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, vote smartly, people over there in America in November. Think about your vote.
As well.
Yeah, It affects more than just the United States. The entire world is affected.